Good afternoon, friends. Now we are playing ICI Moto song. I request all the participants to put their right hand on their heart. Now I request our dynamic and visionary chairman of Ahmedabad branch, CA Fanil Shah, to give his opening remarks. Fanil bhai.
Thank you, Bishan bhai. The speaker of the day, CA Nakul Sherdalal, the secretary of the branch, CA Bishan Shah, and members and students present for this particular webinar. I welcome you all to this. I can say the second webinar of the day and one more webinar to go on RERA. Friends, I'll not take much time because we have a very interesting topic and also a very learned speaker to share the insights on the same along with legal background with respect to trademarks. But I would just like to bring to your notice that apart from this webinar, today evening we are going to have a panel discussion on RERA with the professionals, I mean, you can say from the financial controller and Aniket Talati, Central Council member joining with us. We are also having a webinar series on international taxation. Plus, very important and crucial topic. We are having a webinar tomorrow that is with respect to payment gateways, and in that we are directly having an official from NCPI. So I would say that you can take the best benefit of that webinar also. So with this brief words, I again welcome Nakulji to this particular webinar, right? And I would request Bishan bhai to introduce the speaker of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman sir. Learned faculty of this session, Advocate Nakul Sherdalal, to whom I know for my firm's trademark issues. And Nakul bhai is the authority, I can say, which we all are having liberty to approach easily in Ahmedabad. And one of the problem in we can say in RERA, he has given his services, honorary services to the RERA authority also. So such a generous personality, a humble young advocate who is always ready to deliberate, share his knowledge to the fraternity. So I welcome with big round of applause to Nakul bhai on this webinar. And Nakul bhai, we request you to deliberate, and whenever any of us need your help, so in future also do guide us. So thank you, Nakul bhai. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Bishan bhai, Fanil bhai, and Bishan for this generous introduction. I'll always be there for all my CA friends and friends from other fraternities, because awareness of IP and problems of IP is something, solving something is close to my heart. So a lot of activities that I'm in, and I'm easily approachable. So if you want anything done in intellectual property, or if you have any sort of awareness that you want in intellectual property, I'll always be there, I assure you. So can we begin the session now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll take the presentation to the core and stop sharing my webcam, because I have a lot of material to refer to, right? So is the webcam viewable to the all? Is the presentation Can be seen by everyone?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So is the audio okay?
Yes, sir. Fine.
Okay. So trademark, as you all know, this forms a part of intellectual property. This is the first slide. I'll take you through a little bit of intellectual property and its history, how it all began and where it originated. So intellectual property originated in 500 BCE when a Greek state made it possible for citizens to obtain a one-year patent for any new refinement in luxury. So this is very important. You know, it's intellectual property is very old and it has a lot of advantages. Mostly intellectual property comprises of trademarks, patents, designs, copyright, geographical indications, semiconductors, plant varieties, and trade secrets. But the most practiced forms of intellectual property are trademarks, copyrights, designs, patents, and geographical indications. In India, geographical indications have been promoted a lot by the government of India in the last 5 years, and a lot of indications have been registered. Apart from it, they have done a lot of awareness with regards to these fields, so the filing number has gone up. The intellectual property has a lot of advantages. You know, it pertains to the creation of human mind. So it's about a creator or an inventor. Whatever a human being invents or whatever a human being creates, it's necessary for an idea to have a physical attribute, so it results in creation or invention. And that creation or invention is protectable as intellectual property, be it design, copyright, or patent. But the aspect of trademark is very different. Whenever you brand this creation or invention, or whenever you give a name to this creation or invention, that forms the trademark. So trademark is the primary driver of intellectual property, which gives a name and recognition to other creations and inventions of intellectual property. The earliest use of the term intellectual property appears to have occurred in the ruling of Massachusetts Circuit Court in October 1845 in the patent case of Dowell versus Brown. So this is a bit of history so that you do not remain foreign to the subject and easily acquire the knowledge of intellectual property that I'm going to talk about, which is trademark. So what is a trademark? Trademark is basically in layman language. Let's forget the definition of that's prescribed in the act, but I'll give you a very layman definition that when you give a name to a product to differentiate your product from the other product in the market, that is called a trademark. Okay, so that's the basic definition of trademark, and trademark is very important because you have to give a name to a product. Without giving a name to a product, you cannot take the product to a market, or you cannot bring customer to that product. The first use of trademark was in Baker's marking law. Then Prince Henry told all the bakers to present their breads with a symbol, and that's how it began in 1266. Then it went on to the trademark law went on to be modified and adopted from 1500 to 1800 to what we have right now. I'll take you through a couple of first applications that were filed in United Kingdom as well as India in later part of my slide. So why do you need to register a trademark, or why do you need a trademark in the first place? Like I said, trademark is needed to differentiate your product from the other's product in the market. It is also needed to drive the customer to your product and make your product sellable, because without a name, your product will be generalized and that will be not very wonderful for your product to be sold. Apart from it, trademark has a lot of advantages. When you register or use a trademark, it gains goodwill and reputation. Over the years, as you use your trademark, that goodwill and reputation also adds value to your trademark. So when you decide to sell your trademark, or when you decide to exploit your trademark, all that goodwill, reputation, and valuation will certainly help. So there are three types of trademark. First, let's see the forms first. So there are three forms of trademark apart from the other forms that are rarely practiced. I won't discuss them today. So what we apply the trademarks in three forms. First is the word mark, second is the label mark, and the third is the logo. So a label mark is the most common form of trademark that is applied because it has a certain font style which is used, it has a certain getup, it has a certain way of presentation, it has a certain color scheme which makes it attractive and a very strong mark to apply. The logo is the top part of the trademark. Like you can see on the screen, there is a logo of Apple here. So that is the logo which can be applied separate and along as a part of the label also. And the third form of trademark is word mark, which is a strong mark in its way, but straight away applying for a word mark will weaken your application. So first you need to apply for label mark and its logo. Let them get registered. With that strength, you can then apply for a word mark. So word mark is simply typing the letters of your mark in the form, and it will go simply as a word. If registered, it will be called as a word mark application which is registered. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of registering a label and registering a word? So when you register a label mark, you get a right to use and enforce a certain label in certain form. The way in which it is presented, like you can see, the Coca-Cola here is registered with the device of bottle, right? So if let's assume if Coca-Cola only has registered it as a label mark, then it can only enforce it in the way it is represented. So the case will be mark versus mark, and then goods, mark versus goods as well. So he'll be able to enforce his right against similar goods using this mark in a different way, or he'll be able to enforce his right against any mark for any this mark being used for any goods in the same way, right? Whereas in form of a word mark, the enforcement widens substantially. The person can stop anybody using any font style or any form of representation of that particular word mark in the market. That means that the enforcement criteria of that particular registered proprietor substantially widens with word mark registrations. But again, I'll tell you, the correct strategy to approach a word mark registration will be, first you'll go for the label mark registrations once registered, and if the mark is strong enough, then you will apply for a word mark. Word mark will also attract a lot of oppositions because it will be simply a word which is going to be applied on the register. So that is another disadvantage of a word mark application. But if the label ones are registered, then you'll get that leverage if anyone opposes your word mark application. So these are the 5 categories of trademarks. Fanciful is the strongest form of trademark, which I discussed, a label mark with a word which has no meaning, and when it is represented in a fanciful form, it is most likely to be registered. Second category of trademark is arbitrary. The words of the dictionary are used for something else, right? Like Apple has used the word apple for electronics. That makes it an arbitrary mark and registrable. Like sun is used for microsystems. Like camel is used for cigarettes. So it's not describing the product, it's a dictionary word, but it has been adopted for something completely else. So that makes it registrable as an arbitrary mark. Suggestive mark is a mark that is remotely suggestive but leaves a lot to the customer's imagination. Therefore, suggestive marks also qualify as a particularly strong category of marks that can be accepted. Descriptive ones are the weakest marks because they describe the product itself, like Pizza Hut. You are using the word ice cream to run an ice cream parlor. That's a descriptive mark. Sugar free, again used for sugar free products, and if you're trying to register it, it's a descriptive mark, most likely to be rejected. And the generic marks are the one which are the weakest. 2 of these are the weakest because they have been generalized over the years. Even though they were different at the beginning, they have been generalized, like the case of Xerox. Right? It is now a generic mark because Xerox is a company, but now Xerox is used for the word photocopy. It's a synonym to it. It has almost become a synonym. It's not a synonym, but it has become like a synonym. So in the sense that it's now become a generic mark. Okay, so these are the categories of the trademarks. Now, features of trademark. Once you apply the mark, it will be registered in 6 to 8 months. Second is that it's available for 10 years. After 10 years from the date of application. So it's available from the date of application, not from the date of registration. Once 10 years come to an end, you can renew that mark within 6 months of that date, or before 6 months from that date, for another period of 10 years. It's very simple. So renewals keep on happening. So if you keep on renewing your mark every 10 years, then you make the right infinite. This is a symbol. TM or SM is used when the mark is applied and is under registration process. Okay. So there are 45 classes as per the NICE classification, and 34 classes of them are reserved for goods as per WIPO, and 11 classes are reserved for services. So when you make a trademark application and when the mark is under process, you write TM on the top right corner, which signifies in the market that your mark is under registration process. This is the symbol you put when your mark is registered. So you remove TM and put R once your mark is registered on the register, signifying to the market that your mark now stands registered in the register of trademarks with Government of India. So before I move forward, I want to tell you that every intellectual property is a territorial right, including trademark. So the number of countries that you want to cover your trademark in, you'll have to make a new application in each country. Okay, so that's one thing. So applying in India will give you a territorial right over India for that trademark. And you can also, in case your trademark gets stuck in the application and the examiner tells you to choose territories, then you can choose the states for which your trademark is being used in the market. The next, the first application which was filed in the UK was by Bass and Company, and it was granted on 1st January 1876, filed in class 32. In India, the first 9 applications are not traceable, the records cannot be found. So we have the 10th application, which was filed on 1st June 1942 by James Button and Company Limited for the label device black and white, and it was a product which fell in class 33 for Scotch whisky. So once your trademark is registered, you know, what does your client do with the trademarks that are registered? So you can exploit that right. Enforcement is one part, but beyond enforcement, there is also a world in trademarks, and you can exploit your right by licensing your trademark, by franchising, and by assignments. So let's discuss license and franchise. So when you give someone a right to use your mark, it's called a license to use. So it's basically given by a licensing agreement. Licensing agreement can be exclusive and non-exclusive. Exclusive means that you give that mark for use to basically one business house, and nobody else can use it for a limited business purpose, and only for a right to use. And then there is a non-exclusive use where 10 people can use your mark for a given business proposition for a certain amount of time. So when more than 1 people use, it's a non-exclusive license. And you can define the exclusiveness of the license on the basis of use as per territory also. So territorially, the license can be exclusive, being non-exclusive if C as a whole, but it's exclusive as per the territory, right? Franchising is another successful model how to exploit your trademark. Subway, McDonald's, local examples like Hammer and Sankalp are the successful models of franchising. And it works on the same principle that you give a right to use to a certain person on certain business propositions, right? And for a consideration. Assignment is just like selling your asset. So when you decide to sell your trademark, that's done by an assignment deed for a certain amount of money. Just like you sell your house or sell your business, your trademark can be sold too. Successful assignments or examples of assignment in our own territory is Hammer. Hammer is most successful assignment example, because if you see, most of Hamor Ice Creams was taken over by Lotte for 1,020 crores if TOI reports are to be believed, and 95% of its D value came from intellectual property of its trademark, copyrights, and trade secrets. So that's the power the intellectual property has. So whenever there is licensing and franchising happening, it is very important to maintain quality control. If someone does not maintain quality control, then the courts will not protect that person. So what is quality control? Quality control basically is a compulsory factor with licensing and franchising agreements, meaning thereby that the brand is used by the user in the same style and manner in which the licensor or the franchisor uses it. Also, he has to maintain a certain amount of control in the outlet or for the purpose of which it is granted. For example, if you walk into the subway outlet, any outlet on the airport or in a city or throughout the world, you'll get the same quality feel throughout the outlet in the manner in which the menu has been represented, the mark has been represented, the clothes that the people are wearing, the entire atmosphere of the shop, and the smell. So that is the quality control, which is a big part of these agreements. If the quality control is not practiced and the licensees and the franchisees start working as per their own wish, then that license becomes a naked license, which means that the franchisor or the licensor has failed to stop certain amount of use, certain wrongdoing by the licensees and the franchisees, and if substantial time passes, then the court will consider that the trademark is diluted and it no longer requires a protection. Trademark portfolio is very important. So the more number of trademarks you apply, the more valuation of the business is achieved. The more goodwill and reputation is achieved. So the higher the portfolio, the more attractive the company becomes with its valuation, with its goodwill, reputation, and standing in the market. So trademark portfolio can be increased by applying each brand that the business house comes out with, apart from its trade name. And it also can be increased by dividing the mark in various forms, which I said, like label mark, logo, and a word mark. So the number of marks to be added to the portfolio is a very strategic decision, requires an insight, requires search reports and opinions, which I'll talk in later part of the slide. But yes, the bottom line remains that adding to the trademarks portfolio will always help the business in the long run when it decides to merge or it decides to sell itself in the market, or it decides to exploit its trademark. So moving on to the next important concept in the trademarks in India is the common law right. Common law right is granted to the trademarks which are not registered, which are not on the register of trademarks. So if your client has an unregistered trademark, he can still have a right to enforce it by the virtue of its use. So it's very important for your clients to maintain evidence of use from the first date of use, right? So that in absence of a trademark registration certificate, the documents will only be a viable tool to prove to the court or to any person who wishes to purchase that mark that this mark has been used for 20 years, 25 years, 10 years, whatever, by the way of documents. So documents that can signify this use are commercial invoices, advertisement expense bills, advertisement materials, sales figures, advertisement figures, shop establishment certificates, etc. So the common law right is a right which is available to the users who have not filed for registration of their trademarks. Statutory rights is a right which is granted to the people who have applied and registered their trademarks. So they can easily enforce their right in the court of law by showing the trademark certificate, because it has the name and address of the applicant, the user date details, the application date details, the class of goods for which it is used, the trademark which is presented in the certificate. So all these details become very vital, which are not available to the common law right holder, and he has to prove each detail with a different document, which becomes a big hassle. But still the common law right is there, but statutory right holder has that leverage of only presenting a certificate and conveying the details to the court right away. Apart from it, registrations also add to the value of the marks, so that is a bonus as well. So this is the first section that once your trademark is applied, this is the first section that in case your mark is not fulfilling any criteria, then section 9 is the first section which will come across. It's an absolute ground of refusal, and it's a section which deals with the mark itself. So there is no other mark but the mark itself. If it's absolutely about to be refused registration, then that's defined in section 9. The criteria of it is that your mark is not distinctive, it is descriptive, it is generic, and it does not qualify as per the definition of section 9 that it is a name of the government or certain emblem, or those kind of objections are also raised. So descriptive is being describing the products, distinctive that it's not good enough to be distinctive, and a generic we already discussed in the categories of the trademark. So it's very important, friends, that when your client adopt trademark, it's a fanciful mark, because that's the strongest mark which won't face any hurdle in the absolute grounds of refusal. Section 11 is another ground of refusal, which is called relative ground of refusal. This is a section which deals with mark versus mark. So it will tell you the objection from section 11 will generally come in your application when there is a similar mark that is already on register, and which will amount to an identical or deceptively similar issue, or it will create a confusion and affect the purity of register. So section 11 is an objection which is a relative refusal, and section 9 is a absolute refusal. Section 9 deals with the mark itself, and section 11 deals with mark versus mark. So as far as the trademark register is concerned, you apply, register, and oppose, right? So once you have your mark registered, you can go ahead and oppose other marks which are then subsequently listed for applications. You can find out these marks in the trademark journal, which is published on the IP India website periodically. You can go and search for the trademarks which are similar to your clients and then oppose those marks. Trademark opposition procedure is a different perspective, so I'll cover that in a separate lecture. But yes, having said that, whenever you apply, and if your mark goes through all the objections and then it is published, during these 4 months of publication that are mandatory as per the Trademarks Act, someone can oppose your mark as well, because your mark will also be published in the trademark journal, and then you'll have to file a reply. Then subsequently you'll have to file an evidence, and there will be a hearing, and then your mark will register or be rejected. So if the mark is only applied and registered smoothly, it will take 6 to 8 months to register it as per today's scenario. And if your mark is applied and opposed, and then subsequently it is registered after opposition, then it will take around just less than 2 years to get it registered. Right? So this is one more point which I want to draw all the attendees to. It's user versus proposed. So very important to fill up the date of use in the trademark applications. So most of my colleagues who are not trademark experts, they fill up the forms and let the user go as proposed to be used, which is you are killing the application, because when let's say you file an application in 2020 and you have an user since 2000, your client has an user since 2010, and you go to the form and mention the date of application as today, but the date of use as 2010. So what will happen is that when that application is being examined, and when the user is seen as decade-old use, then that application will be examined with that perspective, that this trademark is being used in the market since 10 years, and so that trademark will carry that strength of 10-year use, and its registration will be very easy. In the case that where the trademark is being used since 10 years, but still it is applied as proposed to be used because the date of use is not clear, then the trademark will go as a fresh trademark and it will be examined with that much scrutiny, and it will not have that strength of 10 years of use. Having said that, where the use is not possible, but still your clients feel that I want to block this mark and use it at later point of time, then in that situation also one can apply the trademark as proposed to be used, and that trademark can be used within 5 years as per the act. So having a user date is always very advantageous, but you do not have a user date, but still your client wants to protect that mark and block that mark for future use because he thinks that it's a good mark, then you can always apply it as a proposed to be used mark. So very interesting few cases I'll present. First, these are the recent trends. First, I'll present trade dress to make it very graphically interesting. So you can see these labels, which are, you can see both the labels, which are of blue, orange, and yellow color. So ITC basically filed a suit against Britannia and stated in the court that they have come up with a similar trade dress and therefore there is a breach of trademark. They require an injunction. So a single judge of Delhi High Court granted an injunction. Britannia filed an appeal and basically said that the ITC has used this label for a very less amount of time, making it not so distinctive, and therefore the injunction be vacated. However, both the parties are settling this matter out of the court, so the issue right now remains indecisive. But these are the type of cases that are coming in trademarks. This is another very important case, very famous case. Pidilite Industries Limited versus Pomax products. You can see two marks, which is Fevikwik and Quick Heal. So Quick Heal was the one which was stopped by the court from breaching the trademark Fevikwik. The test of side-by-side product was applied. So here Pidilite filed a case against Pomax for using the mark Quick Heal. You can see both the products are sold at 5 rupees. And the court said that when both the products are placed side by side, in a supermarket or in a shop, it won't be able for a customer to figure out that Quick Heal belongs to a different party. Instead, the customer will think that Quick Heal is a sister concern of Fevikwik and comes from the house of Pidilite and will buy the product, and thereby Pomax will encash the goodwill and reputation of Pidilite, which is illegal, and therefore the identical get-up color scheme of the packaging was stopped by the court. So this is one more case where the plaintiff on your left was the owner of this unique trademark of orange sole, right? And a local manufacturer had come up with the same sole. So this is a transporter reputation as well as the registrations in India were there. So just giving you the hindsight of the case. And the plaintiff had filed a case against the local manufacturer, telling the court that he had copied the unique trademark of its sole, and which was used since many years. And although it did not have its functioning in India, a lot of Indian travelers invested in its products by buying it when they travel to foreign countries. It also said that it had a lot of trademarks registered in India, and this was the court case made out. So actually the court granted an injunction and the local manufacturer was stopped from using this unique trademark of the plaintiff. This is one more case where the mark active was of issue between both the parties. So Castrol Limited brought a suit against the defendant for using the same brand but as Lumax Active. So Castrol Active was a brand, and it said that defendant had used the suffix active, although the prefix was Lumax, but active was same, and the overall presentation was in a manner in which the customer can easily be deceived, thereby associating the product of defendant with the plaintiff Castrol Limited. The court actually put the products side by side and stated that although Castrol and Lumax are two different brands, active being same and the manner in which the get-up color scheme has been represented, both the marks seem to be similar, and there is a deceptive similar occurrence here, and therefore the defendant was stopped from using this trade dress, which was deceiving of the trademark of Castrol. So there are a few more cases, global cases, that I wish to discuss with all of you. The first being Apple Corps versus Apple Electronics, which is the iPhone company. So it will be of surprise to all of you that Apple Corps, a music company, owned the trademark Apple 8 years before Apple Electronics actually came in the market. So what happened later is interesting. There are two aspects which this case will cover. One is licensing and one is settlement by the way of buyout. So Apple initially decided that it's not going to venture into music, and therefore there can be a registration which can run parallel, but eventually it came out with iTunes. So Apple Corps initially filed a suit against Apple in which it was Apple pleaded that it's not going to venture into music, and so limited registration may be granted. But Apple eventually came out with iTunes, and the matter was settled out of court where Apple purchased the brand Apple from Apple Corps, a music company, and then it licensed the brand back to Apple Corps, so it can still use it for its music company, right? So two things happened here. There is a assignment of brand from Apple Corps to Apple Electronics, which is iPhone, and then Apple Inc. licensed it back to Apple Corps for use in its music company, right? So this is one more fascinating case. Marvel and DC have right over the trademark superhero, and they are quite serious about it. So whenever any publisher tries to publish the trademark superhero on its magazine cover or any sort of publication cover, they immediately catch hold of him or her and file a suit and or send a notice to take the name down, to take the name superhero down because it's their trademark. So this is the case of disparagement of trademark. Washington Redskins is a sports team and it wished to register its trademark with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. But in the examination stage, it was rejected because the USPTO argued that Washington Redskins was a trademark which was disparaging the Native Americans because Redskins, they are called Redskins in the slang language. And that's how their application was rejected. It was refused that they cannot have the name Washington Redskins because it was disparaging trademark of Native Americans. However, they have filed an appeal against that, and you know, it will take its own course. They can still use it as a common law right. This is one fascinating case. It's a very old case, but still remains at top of the game. This is Jack Daniels versus Patrick Vensing. So Patrick Vensing published the brand Jack Daniels on his publication cover, and Jack Daniels, it came to the notice of Jack Daniels, and Jack Daniels, instead of sending a very legal threatening notice, it sent a very wonderful letter to Patrick. Basically, the contents of the letter are that it told Patrick that look, we respect you, that you are a huge fan of the brand Jack Daniels, and we are lucky to have you as a fan, but any use that you do of our brand should be with her permission, and we would appreciate that you take our permission from here on. So Patrick actually was published this letter on his website, and the letter was trending in a lot of ways, and it goes on to stress the fact that issues cannot be brought to an end just by filing a suit or giving a legal threatening notice, but it can always the issue can always be brought to an end by giving such letters which can be strategically drafted and placed in front of the opponent in a manner that the issue can be resolved in the least possible time. So this is one more landmark case. It's an Indian case, moving back from the global scene to the Indian scene. This is a case of Sugar Free, which was filed by Cadila against Amul. So on the right of the screen, you see is the new trademark, which came around this after the judgment was delivered. So the plaintiff claimed that Sugar Free is that trademark, and it's a very successful trademark, and that Amul cannot use the word sugar free. Amul argued that sugar-free is descriptive of its product, and it's just using it to describe the product, that the product is sugar-free, right? Without writing sugar-free, how will the customer know that it's sugar-free? So the court actually went with this argument, and the court said that Amul is actually right. The customer will only know that it's sugar-free. However, while it allowed Amul to write the word sugar-free and rejected the claim of the plaintiff, it also told Amul that you have to reverse the size of the fonts, meaning that the Amul has to be bigger and the sugar-free has to be smaller. So what you see in the screen is actually reverse after the judgment was delivered. Before the judgment was delivered, Amul was of the size sugar-free and sugar-free was of the size of the Amul, which was the only thing that the court told Amul to change. So once again, I'll remind you at this point of time that descriptive trademarks always hurt in the way that either they are rejected or even if they are accepted, the enforcement of a descriptive trademark will always be a challenge to your client. This is one more case of Jhandu Bam. Everybody knows the movie Dabangg, and there was a song in Dabangg where the lyrics were Munni Badnaam Hui, and then Jhandu Bam Hui was one line which was used. So Jhandu Bam belongs to Emami Limited, which we all know, the brand. And Emami Limited filed a suit against the producers of the Dabangg, claiming there is a breach of trademark right here because Jhandu Bam is registered trademark and the producers of Dabangg have not taken permission to use it in the song, thereby causing a breach of trademark. So Emami had a very strong case. The producers of Dabangg settled this case out of court by letting Emami. So it was very interesting settlement. They let Emami use the part clip of the song for 6 months, along with the lyrics of the song Jhandu Bam Hui. So if you would have seen, there was a 6 month, for 6 months or around that time, there was an advertisement of Emami, which was actually a part of the Dabangg song, right? So that was because of the out of court settlement. So this is a very new trend which the plaintiff and defendants have adopted, the courts have adopted for out of court settlement, which actually also does enough justice to both parties. So this one more case I would like to talk about is Rolls-Royce trademark, which stresses on the fact that why trademarks are so important. So Rolls-Royce was bought out by Volkswagen and all its physical assets were bought by Volkswagen except for the trademark, and trademark was bought by BMW. So experts actually debated that BMW got a sweeter deal, which is much evidence in the case of recent case of Hammer also, where its trademarks, copyrights and trade secrets form such a huge part of the deal, which amounts to more than 90%, like I said. So trademarks are very important. All of the intellectual properties are very important, and intellectual property portfolio, including trademark portfolio, will help your client to build a brand to an amazing value, which no one can even imagine. Just diverting from a topic a bit, all of you should regularly follow the updates on ipindia.nic.in. You can make a note of the website ipindia.nic.in, which has policy updates and various FAQs related to intellectual properties. Also, all of you can visit the website CIPAM, C-I-P-A-M. I'll spell it again, CIPAM, which is Cell of Intellectual Property Promotion and Management by the Government of India, which has a lot of blogs and awareness seminars which are going to take place in your city. And apart from that, it has discussions on policy updates. So it's a very important site for all of us professionals and to keep ourselves updated. So both of these sites are very important. So this is where India is. I'll just take you through this graph. We were on point number 81 in 2015. Now we are at rank 52 in 2019. This is not an overnight phenomenon, but a lot of things have changed in the last 5 years, especially in the field of intellectual property. There is a lot of automation. First of all, there was a national IPR policy which came out in 2016. Post that, there were a lot of awareness activities that were done by and are being done currently as we speak also by the government. Apart from it, there was a lot of digitalization and automation, including manpower influx in the IP registries. Hearings were done online by the way of video conferencing. At the examination stage, trademark is yet to achieve that facility. Apart from it, there were a lot of IP cells and nodal centers that were established not only in universities, but also the government grants were substantially granted to those IP cells to facilitate the prototypes and the innovators with the money to actually go and enhance their innovations or make their innovations happen. Apart from it, we are also regularly moving in the global IP index as well. So this is just taking you through how India. So India, what I want to say is that India is at a very strong point as far as IP is concerned in the registrations, prosecutions, as well as litigations. So well-known trademarks before the 2017 trademark rules came into picture. Well-known trademarks were not allowed as an application, but they were only allowed on the well-known trademark register if they were a part, if a trademark was called a well-known trademark in any court or tribunal orders. So once the tribunal and court orders had some sort of recordal in their findings that the trademark was a well-known trademark, then the then the company can take that judgment to the registry and can have their register their trademark put in the well-known register. But now, after Trademark Rules 2017, Rule 124 of the trademark rules lets the company or the applicant apply for his trademark to become well-known. The fees of such application, the government fees of such applications are substantially very high. You can file it with a statement of case, the evidences, any copy of such orders if they are there, and other materials which can help your case with the examiner. So once again, telling all of you, search reports are very important. Why search reports are important? I'll tell you. Search reports are important to see that if there is a similar mark on the register or not. To see if the mark of the same manner have been either registered or abandoned. To see whether if phonetically there are any similar marks or not. So these are the different avenues of why a search report from an expert or at least a search report is very important. Search report can be easily seen by making a public search on the IP India website, where you can go and search for the mark of your client. You have to just fill in the class and the mark in a particular slotted column, and when you click search, all the search will be available in front of you. For the class that is available to your client, you will have to go to the NICE classification, which is also available on the same website, and search for the goods of your client, in which class do they fall. And for that, after that, you can make the public search very easily. So search reports will tell you that if your client's mark is registrable or there are similar mark on register, thereby avoiding unnecessary cost to your client, number one. And number two, it can also help you to guide your client to tweak the mark a little bit so that there is no other similar mark to your client on the register. So this is the concluding slide, but a very important slide. First to use versus first to file, which is more important and which is the supreme. So I'll give you an example. The case of Manikchand and Malikchand, where Manikchand had filed a suit against Malikchand and alleging that Malikchand was similar to Manikchand, and it is similar. However, the catch in the point is that Manikchand was using the mark since late 80s or early 90s, and Malikchand brought evidence to the court that it was actually using the mark since late 1960s. So it actually asked the court in defense that if I am using the mark since late 1960s or much prior to the plaintiff, then how can I copy the mark? Plaintiff has admitted in the plaint that he is using the mark much later than me, and he has also admitted in the plaint that both the marks are similar. So actually, Malik Chand, the defendant, filed a counterclaim and stated that already there is an admission that both marks are similar. However, I am prior in point of time, and therefore my prior use has to be upheld. Even though I have no registered trademarks, I am an unregistered user, but I have proved my use by various documentary evidences that my use is prior to the plaintiff. In such a scenario, the Supreme Court passed a landmark judgment, which is a principle even today, that first to use will always be supreme to first to file. So if somebody has used the trademark prior to the person who has filed and achieved registration, then such prior use will always be supreme, irrespective if he has subsequently applied for registration or he has not, right? So prior user is supreme, and first to use will always be supreme against first to file. I hope all of you enjoyed the seminar, and we can have some questions if anybody has.
Yes, if there are any questions. So the first question is, I think to you, Nakul bhai.
Can I read the questions? Where are the questions?
Yes, I have in question box, I have sent it that question to you, but I am reading it for the benefit. We are a company, Chemphasis. I guess you are, or how it's. We are a company, Chemphasis Infotech, and I have a question regarding the trademark. I would not like to disturb you, but maybe at the end, please give a chance to ask the question. Okay. So it is Kalpesh Kotadia. Let me see whether he is there or not. Kalpesh Kotadia. Yes, he is there.
So
what is the yeah, I am asking. I am unmuting his microphone. Kalpesh bhai, if you can post a question.
Yes, thank you very much for taking up your time to listen to my question. Okay. Now, I recently, last night, I received an email from Mphasis company. They are MPHASIS. Okay, they are a really huge company in IT sector. They are in this business for more than 20 years. Now, when we registered our company as Chemphasis Infotech LLP, actually, okay, so we didn't know we are in a conflict with them in terms of the name. So I received a legal notice saying that we are wrongfully using their name in our logo, and they are asking us to remove our website and logo and everything and come up with a new name. Otherwise, they would take legal action. So at this point, I would like to go ahead, please.
Yeah. So what is the amount of use that you have done of your trademark? Since when are you using your trademark?
Well, we registered LLP in November 2019. Okay. We are a really small company. We just started a couple of months back.
Okay. And have you applied for trademark registration?
No, we have not applied for any trademark yet. We just registered as a company.
So the company who has sent you a notice, is it directly your competitor, or you are their competitor, or you are in different field?
You could say we are in the same field, but not a competitor at all, because they are a huge multinational company, and I am just a small company.
No, but are you giving the same services?
Yes, you could say.
Okay. And do you have a legal reason of adopting this trademark? What is the reason for adopting this trademark?
No, there's no reason. Whenever we were searching for a name, I randomly came up with this name. I wouldn't lie to you guys actually, but yes, I randomly came up with Chemphasis name. K is my initial, and I wanted to put something connecting to that, and I came up with this name. If I would have known it is in conflict, I didn't even know a company called Mphasis exists at the time of coming up with the name. So what should I maybe?
Yeah. So is there any difference when you simply write the name of your mark? Is there any difference of letter between his name and your name?
Yes, just one letter. You could see That company name is just Mphasis, Mphasis, just Mphasis. And my company is Chemphasis Infotech, as written in the question in my question.
So Infotech
So
is
does
anyway,
hold?
Infotech won't hold because that is a descriptive term, as we all know. And there are a lot of Infotechs in the market. But the main crux of your trademark remains the prefix, which is the emphasis. So it's a very tough nut to crack, this one. He has what's the amount of use that he has depicted, what's his standing in the market, what's his territory, how many marks he has registered. All these things you can ask from him. Then you can analyze the situation, take help of any expert, and then actually there is a proper reply can be given to him. So giving up right now won't be right. Giving up right now on your part won't be right. But by extracting material and putting actual that material in front of us and looking the things side by side, then we will be in a position to actually analyze your case and reply. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll just reply them and see how exactly they are.
You can ask for their credentials in terms of intellectual property and trademarks, and look what all you get. And then you can go on from there. You can take a call. Till then, I advise that you may just discourage your business on this trademark a bit, meaning that you can go on with your business, but use this brand a little less, so that till this issue is resolved, this brand does not anyway handle your commercial gains. Okay.
I understand. Thank you very much for your answer.
Welcome.
Thank you,
welcome.
and thank you, Nakul sir.
Okay.
Now the next question is Mr. From Himanshu Bhatia. He wants to ask that before oppose defendant use our trademark, so whether we get any compensation with his sales during that time period.
No, come again. I didn't get the question actually.
Before oppose, defendant use our trademark. So defendant has used his trademark before they oppose to it, and so whether we can get any compensation from that person on the sales made by him.
So yes. So see. So oppose, he is talking about the market use. So opposition is one thing which is a registry proceeding, right? So he has not done that. That is much evident. So they must have gone to court and they must have alleged that the defendant is using the trademark or whatever. So if you can prove that there is loss in your profit, and if you can also bring up the sales of the defendant that and actually convince the court that he has encashed on your brand the sales, then actually you can get that monetary compensation. You can achieve that. Yes. Next question. Bishan bhai, your voice is not available. Hello.
Sir, can you please highlight the stamp duty aspect in assignment of trademark?
Yeah. So usually I tell my clients to go with 3%. So that is the answer of all the consideration that is promised in the assignment. Okay.
The next is, can we file application by ourselves or we have to consult professionals?
No, see, consulting a professional will always help you, but the fact remains that you can file the application by yourself as well, right? As a party, you can file. You don't need a professional. Professional help is only for your satisfaction and that things are done right and your application goes at one point at a single go. It's not rejected or it's not objected, but you can still do it on your own. Okay.
Okay. So the next question is, if any product of a company is selling products in market, and if the product is then relabeled by any third person with his name, selling in market, registering his brand as a new trademark, the product is chemical, the same kind of product are sold by other different companies with their manufacturing facilities and sold in the market, will this be regarded as a trademark breach due to just relabeling sold by many others?
So if the trademark if it's your trademark and it's being relabeled and sold by somebody else, then definitely it is a trademark breach. And probably your question was a little bit confusing, but I still go ahead and answer the other part of your question. That if your trademark is being used by many others and if you have failed to enforce your right, then probably the trademark is generalized. But you can still go ahead and stop someone if you feel that is entirely using your identical mark on his label. First of all, you can begin with a notice, and after that you can file a suit. And you can also search the register of trademarks to see if he has any pending application for that trademark, which is your trademark, in his name. And then if it's published, you can oppose that as well. Okay.
The next question is by CA Nidesh Dhanuka. He wants to ask that whether application must be done in the name of individual or private limited company. Saving cost is advisable by applying in the name of individual. So if individual is making an application, can he save instead of in the name of company or firm?
Definitely he can save, but see, later it will be he will be spending on licensing, because if the company is using the trademark, right? If some individual is a director of company, but company is using a trademark, and if director applies on his individual name in his individual address, then he'll still have to license the trademark to the company for its use. So you will have a licensing agreement, and things will get a little murkier, because the goodwill reputation will always reflect on the individual. So obviously there will be the government fees will be saved, but my advice to you is that the user in the end who is using that trademark has to apply. So if it's a company has to apply. Okay.
Okay. The next question is from Mr. Kunal Sevak. While we have applied for company registration, we have received letter from Registrar of Companies. The same name is already trademark, but the same name is my surname. My question is, anyone can get trademark of surname?
So if the surname is, yes, you can get a trademark in the name of surname. If you write your surname in a fanciful manner and represent it with a logo, then it becomes a very strong mark which can be registered. Although this is debatable at examination stage, but your application should be through. It cannot be applied as a trademark because it will have a lot of objections, which I already explained in my presentation.
Yeah, and he also wants to ask that how to get approval by trademark owner, and from where we can get his contact, so we can take his approval before answering to ROC.
So you can get his details from the ROC itself, or you can get the details from the trademark office, where you can take the order of the ROC that such and such similar trademark is registered, and from that number you can extract all the details from the IP India nic.in website. You can go to trademark status, type that number, and get all the details where his email ID and his address would be there. So you can then take your case forward. Next question.
Next question, and the last question is from Mr. Deepak Piparia. He wants to know that Hare Krishna Group, a registered trademark under class 37. Our clients want to apply with name Hare Krishna Construction. Can we apply for trademark, or will it be rejected for sure?
So while applying for trademark, three things are very important. Why are you adopting a trademark? So Hare Krishna is a very common mark, and a lot of people have it, first of all. So I don't see a problem for you having it. However, the territory of use, the class of goods, and how it is represented, how the mark is represented is very important. So how we are representing the mark, and for which goods you have applied, and the manner in which the trademark comes up along with objection at an examination stage and its reply, all will become a driving force in the registration of the application of your client. However, having said that, Hare Krishna, there are a lot of trademarks with the mark Hare Krishna. So I don't see a problem.
Okay. So thank you.
sensible mark will be allowed.
Okay. So thank you very much, Nakul bhai, for sparing your valuable time and sharing knowledge also, sir. We at Ahmedabad branch of WRC of ICAI and all participants are thankful to you. We request you to share some more thoughts on these IPR issues in near future. So we'll invite you again, and thanks for spending your time. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure. See you soon. Bye, everyone.
See you.
Thanks for listening.
Everybody, stay home, stay safe. We are ending the webinar here. Thank you.